Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Dr. Israel Jelly. I'm going to give you today a lecture about invasion, metastasis, and effects of tumor. What are the objectives of our lecture today? At the end of this lecture, you should be able to define invasion and metastasis, discuss mechanisms involved. What are the routes of metastasis and what are the local and systemic effects of benign and malignant neoplasms? Right. Now, what is invasion? Invasion in Arabic means اختراق. Invasion is the ability of cells to break through the basement membrane and spread farther, either by direct invasion into the surrounding tissue or into the lymphatics and the vascular channels and then metastasize further to distant sites. What is the difference between benign versus malignant lesions in invasive behavior? You know, most benign tumors grow as a cohesive expansile mass and develop a rim of condensed connective tissue اللي نسميها احنا الكبسول at the periphery of the tumor. هاي المن هاي البناين tumor. The benign tumors do not penetrate the capsule or the surrounding normal tissue. فتبقى البناين tumor محاطة بهاي الكوندنسد connective tissue اللي نسميها الكبسول وما تخترق هاي الكبسول into the surrounding tissue. Therefore, on surgical intervention, the surgeon found easily to inoculate and remove the benign tumors which are well demarcated and well surrounded by the capsule. While malignant neoplasms are usually invasive and infiltrative and destroy the normal tissues surrounding them. So, malignant neoplasms have the ability to destroy and infiltrate the surrounding tissue. That's why you find the malignant neoplasms lack this well-defined capsule and therefore make the inoculation, surgical inoculation and removal difficult or impossible. لذلك من يسوون surgery لهم عادة إيش ياخذ السيرجن يسوي considerable margin of healthy and apparently uninvolved tissue removed together with the tumor. So, invasion and metastasis are characteristic features of malignant cells. The question now is, how do cells invade and spread? Well, under normal circumstances, all cells are under strict regulation to prevent them surviving outside the normal environments. So a successful invasion to happen and subsequent metastasis of malignant cells requires a complex and sequence of events to be completed. So there are various factors enable the malignant cells to be able to invade and spread. These factors are, first of all, malignant cells should become not adherent, not stick to one another and surrounding tissue in the same way as normal. Second, there should be an altered synthesis of enzymes that break down the basement membrane and stroma. Third, there should be some factors that are produced and help the cells to become motile, motility factors. And also, there should be some messages and a way of interaction between the malignant cells and the surrounding microenvironment or stroma to enable them to survive in the new environment. So we will discuss the mechanistics of these steps that enable the malignant cells to invade and right. As we mentioned in the previous slide, that the malignant cells need to lose their adhesion to the neighboring cells to be able to move apart. So, altered cell adhesion can occur by different mechanisms. One of these mechanisms is loss of cadherins. What are cadherins? Cadherins are calcium-dependent glycoproteins present at cell membrane. They interact between the cells and also they interact within each cell with the actin cytoskeleton of the cell through catenins. By this way, they maintain the adherence between the cells and the polarity of the normal cells. In malignant cells, there is reduced expression and alteration in interaction in cancer cells due to reduced expression or loss of these cadherins that allow the cells to move apart. So, this diagram shows how the cadherins of adjacent cells attach to each other and how the cadherin of each cell interact with the interior of the actin cytoskeleton of the cell through catenins. By this way, these cadherins keep the cells adherent to each other and keep the polarity of the cells. Right. Here is an example on loss of cadherins in malignant cells. Lobular carcinoma is a type of breast carcinoma where the malignant cells in this type appear to be on histological section to arrange in a linear pattern, and they characterize by loss or reduced expression of the E-cadherins, which can be showed up by the staining of these cells by immunohistochemistry, by adding specific antibodies to attach to the E-cadherin receptors to specific antigens and to show up these antigens. So if the antigens are present, they appear as a brownish color, in brownish color on the stain section. If they not appear, so we can't see this brownish color. So on the top left side is the H&E stent, hematoxylin and eosine stent section of lobular carcinoma, where you can see these dark stain cells arranged in a linear pattern. And below it, on the left side, the immunohistochemistry stain section, where there is a loss or a reduced expression of these E-cadherins. On the right side, on the top picture, is the hematoxylin and the stain section of another type of breast cancer of ductal type, where there is an expression of E-cadherins, which can be showed up by the brownish stain section on immunohistochemistry on the down picture on the right side. This phenomenon is important in the diagnostic labs to distinguish between lobular carcinoma and another type of breast cancer, which is ductal carcinoma, where there is loss of expression of E-cadherins in lobular carcinoma and presence of the expression of E-cadherins in ductal carcinoma, as you can see in this slide. Okay, we still discussing the mechanistics of loss of the adhesion of the malignant cells from the neighboring cells. The second mechanism is by loss of integrins. Integrins are cell surface glycoproteins composed of two subunits. They are receptors for different components of the basement membrane. So these receptors provide a connection between the epithelial cells and specific components of the basement membrane like fibronectin. So, reduced expression of these integrins in malignant cells modify the contact of the malignant cells with the basement membrane, allowing these malignant cells to move apart away from the basement membrane. The diagram here shows the structure of these integrins, which consist of two subunits, alpha and beta, and have three parts: extracellular portion, intracellular, and transmembrane. And they allow a connection or receptors. They have receptors for specific components of the basement membrane to stick the epithelial cells to the basement membrane, as we discussed in the previous diagram explained almost. Now, after the cells lose their adherence to each other and to the basement membrane, the next step should comes, and the next step is to break down the basement membrane. This happens by altered enzyme synthesis and interaction, where certain enzymes can modify this trauma, allowing the malignant cells to break through the basement membrane and invade. The production of enzymes that degrade the extracellular matrix appears to be an important factor in metastasis. One of the most studied being the matrix metalloproteinases, which degrade the collagens. We have different types of metalloproteinases. We have type 2 and 9, which are degrading type 4 collagen, type 1, which degrade type 1 collagen. There is a way. So, malignant cells synthesize factors that stimulate stromal cells, fibroblasts, to synthesize enzymes such as metalloproteinases, which as we mentioned in the previous slide, play an important role in the breakthrough of the malignant cells through the basement membrane. This interaction between the malignant cells and the stromal cells is an interaction between the tumor cells and the microenvironment, which enable the malignant cells to do its job and break down the basement membrane and the move through the stromal component. So enzymes such as metalloproteinases then bind to malignant cells and allow them to break through the basement. So this diagram shows how the malignant cells secrete growth factors that stimulate stromal cells like fibroblasts to secrete metalloproteinases, which have their receptors on the malignant cells, and they work with the malignant cells as a weapons for the malignant cells to destroy the basement membrane and enabling the malignant cells to break through and leave its place and move towards the stroma. Right, so now after the breakdown of the basement membrane, the malignant cells move through the broken basement membrane into this stroma, where they divide and multiply and enabled by many steps and molecular events that enable them to break through the vascular channels, and when these cells establish themselves in the circulation, they become on board to metastasize to distant sites away from the primary site in a process called metastasis. Right. Now, what is metastasis? Metastasis is the ability of malignant cells to spread to distant sites, not adjacent organ، لأنه إذا للadjacent organ فمعناته صار local invasion. Metastasis means the ability of malignant cells to spread into distant sites. This ability of the cancer cells حتى تقدر إنه هذه الكانسر cells تنتقل من البرايمري site to distant site needs a way of transport. This way of transport شنو ممكن يكون؟ ممكن يكون lymphatic vessel، ممكن يكون blood vessel، ممكن يكون body cavities. فهذه هي ways of the transport of the malignant cells to become on board to travel into distant sites. So following this transport of the malignant cells, there will be a growth of secondary tumor masses where in the distant sites. And this growth of these secondary masses are discontinuous with the primary tumor. حقيقة metastasis regarded as the single most important feature distinguishing benign from malignant tumors. Okay? أكو عندنا بس exception واحد اللي هو tumors of the brain والbasal cell carcinoma of the skin. دولي slowly growing tumor. Very rare نلقاهم يصير عندهم metastasis رغم هي malignant tumor. Almost all malignant tumors have the capacity to metastasize apart from tumors in the brain. ليش؟ لأنه البرين محاط the blood-brain barrier اللي يمنع الكانسر cells إنه metastasize to other sites of the body. وأيضا البيزل سيل كارسينوما اللي هو نوع من أنواع سرطانات الجلد اللي عادة يكون locally aggressive and metastasize rarely. Apart from these two examples, all malignant tumors have the capacity to metastasize. For example, breast carcinoma. The primary tumor were in the breast. The secondary metastasis could be in the brain. So the malignant cells could invade the vascular channels in the breast tissue and can travel through these vascular channels and then pass the blood-brain barrier and settle out in the brain as a secondary metastasis. Could be also metastasized to the lung, the brain, anywhere. So metastasis refers to the process of tumor spread and the secondary tumor itself become now discontinuous with the primary organ or primary tumor and grow itself in the organ where it settled out. Now, why don't all malignant cells metastasize? Malignant cells may invade and circulate, but when they arrive to the distant site, the microenvironment, the environment in the organ when they arrive may be not suitable for the growth of these cells. Yeah, so this could be due to incorrect receptors, metabolic factors, failure of angiogenesis. So there should be something that make the environment, the organ, should have an appropriate environment, including, for example, the absence of the protease inhibitors. There should be, for example, the presence of appropriate growth factors to enable the malignant cells to survive in the organ distant from the primary site of its origin. Now, if the tumor cells, for example, fail to recruit an adequate blood supply, then they will not grow. So angiogenesis, which is the process by which there is a formation of small new blood vessels needed to maintain growth of cells, is very vital to the survival of the malignant cells away or distant from the site or the primary site of its origin. So, what is angiogenesis? So, the angiogenesis is the formation of new blood vessels to maintain the growth and the viability of the malignant cells in the distant sites where they metastasize. Now, the formation of these new blood vessels is triggered by various growth factors, which are produced by the cancer cells. The two most important angiogenesis factors secreted by cells, including tumor cells, are vascular endothelial growth factor and the basic fibroblast growth factor, which are enhancing the new blood vessel formation. So when there is more thin-walled blood vessels are formed at site of metastasis, this will give more opportunity for the tumor cells to enter the bloodstream, and therefore angiogenesis can be regarded as a vital process to aid the growth of metastasis. Now, what are the roots of metastasis? Spread of malignant tumor from its primary site is by four main routes. Number one, local invasion, which is the most common pattern of spread of malignant tumors by direct growth into adjacent tissue. Number two, by vascular invasion. Vascular invasion get access into the vascular channels and spread to distant sites. For example, metastatic foci in liver. Lymphatics also break down the lymphatic channels, get inside the lymphatic channels and spread to through the lymphatics to multiple lymph nodes or lymph nodes outside the site, the primary site of the origin of the tumor. Coelomic spread, where the tumor seeds on peritoneal cavities to distant sites. For example, gastric carcinoma by coelomic spread can reach to the ovary. So, one of the routes of the metastasis is by lymphatics, where the tumor cells, as we said, spread frequently via the draining lymphatics vessels and are conducted to local and distant lymph nodes where they grow as secondary tumors. Right, so this is a histology picture showing a lymph node involved by metastasis. So on the left side, you see the normal lymph node architecture, where the lymph node is composed mainly of lymphocytes, these bluish small cells. While on the right side, the picture, the H&E stain section, histological section, shows replacement of the lymph node structure by the malignant cells اللي يشوفوها هذه nests of large cells hyperchromatic بها كل الفيتشرز hyperchromatic increase NC ratio pleomorphic cells تختلف عن النورمال structure اللي موجود بالليفت سايد of this slide. فالlymph node حقيقة in the lymphatic drainage of tumors are frequently enlarged, and this is due to the growth of the metastatic tumor cells within the lymph nodes. The picture above shows how the malignant cells invading the lymphatic channels. ده تشوفون بأعلى يسار البيكتشر وأيضا بأسفل البيكتشر فد فراغات وموجود بها فراغات كبيرة وموجود بها يعني lymphatic channels موجود بها malignant cells. حتى نشوفكم شلون ال malignant cells invade the lymphatic channels and through the lymphatic drainage can spread to distant sites. Right. Now, the vascular spread or hematogenous spread, this is typical of all sarcomas, but also is the favorite route for certain carcinomas, like those originating in the kidney. Because of their thinner walls, veins are more frequently invaded than arteries. يعني احنا نعرف الارتريز شو بيها muscular wall، أما الveins يكون الwalls مالتها thinner than the arteries, so they are frequently much more invaded than the arteries. And the metastasis follows the pattern of venous flow. Okay, so for example, most GIT tumors metastasize to liver because their venous drainage goes to liver. So from this facts, lung and liver are the most common sites of hematogenous metastasis, and the other major sites of hematogenous spread include brain and bones. This is, for example, an example of vascular spread to lung, which can occur with a wide range of malignant neoplasms, like, for example, sarcomas, osteosarcoma, carcinomas like breast, stomach, large intestine. This is the cannon ball, which is a radiological term, describes the multiple metastatic foci of renal cell carcinoma into the lung. And here is the gross appearance of these metastatic foci to the lung. This is another example on metastatic foci to the liver, which is a common site for carcinomas of large intestine through the portal vein, which drain the large intestine into liver, and bronchial carcinoma, breast carcinoma also could metastasize to liver. So here you can see clearly the multiple, usually metastatic foci are multiple. Primary tumor in the liver, you will find single focus, single mass. In metastasis, you will find multiple foci, multiple masses. Another example of vascular spread is to bone, which can cause destruction of the bone. The common carcinomas that metastasize to bone are bronchial carcinomas, breast, thyroid, renal, prostate. Okay, this is another example of hematogenous spread to brain. Metastasis to brain commonly go to the part of the brain in semi-cerebral hemispheres, as you can see in this gross picture. As the metastatic brain tumors grow, they create pressure and change the function of the surrounding brain tissue, and therefore the patients usually present with signs and symptoms related to loss of the function of the brain tissue. Brain metastases occur when the cancer cells travel through the bloodstream or the lymph nodes to the brain. 10 to 15% of female, for example, with breast cancer stage 4 can develop brain metastasis. And I think you have a case in your group discussion about the metastatic foci from breast to brain. Okay, the point that I would like to raise in this metastasis is that the malignant cells have the ability to break the blood-brain barrier. احنا نعرف انه blood-brain barrier helps to protect the brain from infection. Okay, so an invasion of the blood-brain barrier by the cancer cells enable the cancer cells to settle out in the brain. طبعا وكل ما يكبر التيومر بالبرين مثل ما عرفنا راح يصير pressure على surrounding tissue وممكن يسوي لنا blockage of the CSF circulation by the pressure on the ventricles, the lateral ventricles. This will cause increase in the intracranial pressure and may cause death. Okay. Metastasis to the brain commonly comes from bronchial carcinoma, breast carcinoma, testicular carcinoma, and malignant melanoma.